A number of warplanes fly in the sky providing support for the ongoing war. The observer can clearly see the chaos that was going on with his screen. An in-game window had popped up asking him if he would like to authorize a nuclear attack using the name of the god Nebula. The observer clicked the yes button. The head of a huge nuclear missile flies upward through the sky. The weapon of mass destruction was immediately launched to prepare for a nuclear attack. The observer was floating in the sky as the missiles were going down on a target place. The orc had noticed an unfamiliar technology that was heading towards a direction. However, an armored entity immediately recognized that it was a nuclear strike. He was confident to tell Nebula that he had prepared for something like this. Another set of nuclear missiles was headed in the opposite direction. It had been launched in order to counter the missile attack from Nebula. The observer, who is named as Nebula, also recognized that it was the anti-ballistic missiles, which made him acknowledge his opponent's preparation. The missiles directly hit each other and exploded into the sky. However, another nuclear missile that was far away from the other was flying beneath the clouds. It slowly rises up high into the sky. At the moment that it had reached the highest point, it broke down into separate pieces. The head part of the missile was now directly heading onto a city with great civilizations. An orc priest can be seen praying and performing a ritual. He was accompanied by some of the orcs on his back, and each of them did their part by praying solemnly. The missile had slowly reached down toward the city. The orc priest was not fazed and still continues to perform the ritual. The armored man knew that praying is meaningless in this kind of situation. Suddenly, a green smoke and light began to form into the sky. The missile had suddenly stopped by a manifested hand from the green smoke in the sky. The green smokes formed a huge horned orc that caught the missile just right before it reached the city, as the armored man told Nebula that faith always produces unexpected results. Nebula observed that the armored man was using the holy orc strategy for defense. The armored man laughed upon successfully revealing his effective defensive strategy. He introduced this strategy as the optimized holy orc strat. The armored man named Hegemony was in the server's second-ranking player, and it mocks Nebula to surrender instead of struggling to fight. Nebula observed that it was the reason why Hegemony was very confident at their fight. It was known for the orcs as the easiest unit to recruit, but it requires much effort and perseverance to develop such strong faith. Nebula purposely selected the skies as his battlefield in order to let him have a freedom to prepare for any kinetic attacks, and it was also admirable Hegemony's preparation of Spirit Apostle. However, Nebula kind of expected this to happen. He also has prepared so much to launch his sky units up in the sky. Nebula can utilize the endless distance of the sky to launch unexpected attacks directly from above. Another set of sky attacks was launched by Nebula. Hegemony noticed Nebula's series of attacks. He was surprised that Nebula had now launched the kinetic bombardment right after launching the nukes. Hegemony became more tensed by the upcoming kinetic missile that was heading down on their city, and it was possibly going to hit their palace. Nebula knows that it is now impossible to stop this attack. These kinetic missiles are smaller in number compared to other attacks. However, the acceleration of the gravity will soon pile up, which increases the force and impact of the kinetic missile. Nebula was confident that Hegemony cannot do anything for now because it was too late for him to react upon realizing his attack's intention. The missiles had created a huge explosion right onto the palace, affecting the orcs along the way. One of the rods had been buried onto the ground. It was followed by some of the incoming kinetic rods and hit the same place. The force of the impact had blown away the orcs within the area. The attack had killed the current emperor. Some of the underground temples by Hegemony had also collapsed along with the imperial palace, leaving no trace of living being on the point of impact. Hegemony realized that all of the faith he had built up is now gone forever. The disappearance of their faith affects the holy orc's existence. Eventually, the apostle would perish along with the disappearance of faith. Nebula was declared the winner, and his ranking was now in the first across the server. He bid a farewell to Hegemony, but Hegemony begged for one more game because he badly wanted to go on a winning streak for now. Hegemony keeps begging Nebula to have another battle with him. An in-game window confirming the rematch of the match had popped up, and Nebula was carefully considering it. He was kind of disappointed about the recent match because he thought that Hegemony had a trump card until the end. It was just another game for Nebula, and he was able to complete all of his achievements in order to help him climb up the rankings. Nebula stretched his hand to prepare for another action when suddenly the doorbell rings. He immediately heard it and wondered who might be calling him. Nebula was curious about who would bother his gaming time at this late night. An achievement window had popped up that signifies that he was the only one who had completed all of the achievements, and the developers are thanking him for enjoying the game entitled as Perished World. Nebula noticed that the developer must have decided to end their service. It shows another message that the beta testing period of the game has already ended and it is now being released by the public, and a player named Nebula will be able to enjoy the game right before it goes live to the public. Nebula was surprised to note that it was just only the beta version of the game and looks forward more to the real game. A window popped up asking for his confirmation to enter another game. He was also curious about what would come next in the full release of the game. Nebula clicked yes without any doubts. His avatar can be seen idle within the game. In just a moment, he brought life to his avatar, which signifies that he was already in the game. Nebula's eyes were suddenly filled with excitement. He had witnessed that he was in a place that seemed to be in the form of a temple. However, it also resembles a ruin. Nebula realizes that he also looked like with his in-game avatar that made him wonder if this was only just a dream. One of the players responded that it wasn't just a dream. Another one said that Nebula belonged to the Chosen Ones. A person covered in the robe introduces himself in the name of Aladdin. Nebula asked him back how he knew his name. He suddenly looked in a certain direction and further asked about those entities. They were like in a form of manifested shadows. He still wonders about the creature's presence. Aladdin told Nebula that he was also wondering if some of the players would have the skill to know each other, and the game enables everyone to receive a mask for protecting their identity. He carefully walked into the center of the temple to proceed, telling everyone to get to the point. Aladdin raises both of his hands up onto the sky. In a sudden, the empty space displays the image of the earth. Nebula wondered if it was really the earth. However, he had already seen it many times before, and although it looks like the earth, he is sure that it is not the earth. It is a planet that was called the Perished World. Aladdin introduces to the player the boundlessness of the Perished World. He tells everyone that they are all turning into a specific entity. They will all become one of the true gods. There is a silhouette of the shadows that was also standing in the shadows among them. Nebula can feel the presence of the players who are embarrassed even though he cannot hear them. The Lost World is not just a world that exists in digital games. It is a world that was abandoned by the past due to unprecedented incidents. In that place, there was once an intelligent civilization that emerged, which is composed of different races that live in harmony. However, the reason is unclear as to why the gods had left it. Eventually, the time for the new gods had come into this world. It can be seen that Nebula was standing in front of Aladdin along with the shadows around them. Aladdin spoke about the game called Lost World, where it was created with the sole purpose of seeking suitable candidates for that certain planet. Anyone can become God if they try to do so. It was essentially similar to the Lost World, where only the shabby things will believe them at first, but they can achieve something when they manage to call out those who believe in a player. They can become the one and only God on that planet, where he is free to do anything he desires. All the dreams that a player badly wanted to do will be more possible when they become the God of that world. Nebula became speechless upon listening to Aladdin. Aladdin further added that if they decided to give up, they will eventually return to their daily life and lose memories of this place, in which Nebula clarified about what if they decided to give up while in the middle of challenges. Aladdin replied that they are not allowed to give up during challenges. Nebula asked another question about what would happen to them if they were defeated by the gods. Aladdin answered that it will instead be a godly end, and it was the most welcoming thing for him to end the challenge. Upon hearing it, Nebula was surprised about his answer. He is very much aware that the godly end is similar to the word extinction. Nebula asked if all the players would risk their life for the challenge. They are being told that there is no valid reason for giving up once they have accepted the challenge. Aladdin opened the conversation for everyone to make a decision. He called the attention of those players who wanted to give up, and he placed a set of cards for the ones who are eager to take the challenge. These cards will serve as the selection of their starting area to begin their journey onto the Lost World. Nebula observed that it was just like a game because they are allowed to choose their starting point. However, he immediately noticed something was happening. Nebula can see that most of the people had decided to give up already. A shadow disappeared from the temple. The series of the players who decided to give up can be observed by Nebula, until the last shadow who gave up on taking the challenge disappeared. It was known that the maximum number of people that was the candidate for the Lost World is 32. To consider the number of people who had given up, they are now in the final number of 27 remaining candidates. Aladdin encourages everyone who remained to choose their starting point. Nebula was surprised when Aladdin called him first to select his desired selecting point. He assumes that the order for the selection was the order of the rankings. Nebula recognized the place he had chosen, and the moment he saw the information, he immediately got teleported to that starting point. The Lost World planet was so bright and it almost looked like the planet Earth. Somehow, in a seemingly huge continent that was covered by a large area of the ocean, it was Nebula's starting point. It was a bright and calm day at the river, along with the breeze of wind that gently hit the trees on the land. A frog can be seen poking its head from the water and has spotted a potential prey. However, he also spotted another larger fish near him right under the water. The frog jumped out of the water and grabbed the fish with the help of his set of muscular arms. Another frog had appeared and they were both grateful for their catch. Once again, the butterfly caught his attention. It was a species of a butterfly that is not familiar to him, and he also just decided that he was not going to eat bugs for this day. That butterfly landed on the hand of a player. It was Nebula who observed that the creature might be a frogman. The card he had chosen contained the information that his starting point was a small area of insects with the lowest win rate, but it depends on the situation. He knows that even though it has the opposite compatibility with bird, it will be eventually useful for him in the beginning. However, he was still surprised about his choice. Nebula landed on the eastern end of the continent, which means that he will expect that there will be no battle for a while. He is aware that in gaining benefits early in the game, it will be difficult for him to utilize an aggressive strategy. With that idea, he decided that the most logical choice is to begin with the race that eats insects on a daily basis. The best example for that is the frogmen. However, he is still skeptical because the population of the frogmen is what concerns him. The total population of their group is about 500, which will be difficult for him to detect as the first try. A window popped up beside him showing him number 10. The game Lost World was all about a creature's influence that was similar to the level of faith it possesses, and the number was still too small for him to gain influence on their fellow frogmen. Nebula decided to watch another race that was near his starting point. It can be seen that there is a group of lizardmen walking in the middle of the desert. He recognized that it was a lizardman race, and it also definitely eats insects. This race was known to survive many days without any water, and he saw that their number was quite low, which would be a good way to start a race. Among the race, there were some sick lizards and an old lizard. He also noticed that there was a badly injured lizard. Nebula understands that this lizard might be from the original group. He assumes that this lizard must have been pushed out during a power struggle. Nebula knows that the more he feels abandoned by the world, the more he feels tired. This lizard seems to be finding some miracle. However, Nebula knows that this lizard was such a fragile being. He still considered making a decision. Nebula chose to begin with the badly injured lizard. A group of lizards still continued their journey. Some of them grow very tired and hungry during their journey. Suddenly, they spotted a gazelle along their way. It was an injured one and cannot seem to have an ability to run away from them. Without any hesitation, they jumped towards the animal to catch it all together. They gathered up on the animal due to excitement because it has been a long time since they had tasted this kind of meat. However, it was not that beneficial for the elderly patients and sick lizards. The lizard feasts on the animal and aggressively eats all of its meat. They had already finished eating the animal until bone only left, but they are still not done for this. For them, the bone marrow for this animal is also a tasty part. As the lizard began to try one of the bones, it was snatched from him. It was Jael, that is one of the lizards, who stopped them from being selfish and decided to provide all of the bone marrow for those who are incapable of hunting. He gathered all the bones from the animal and brought it to the sick and old ones. The other lizards were grateful that they still got some food. They began to munch on the bone, trying to get the bone marrow as a source of energy. The injured lizard also got some of the bones to feed on. A lizard asked Jael if he really was sure about his decision. They told Jael that it really doesn't matter if there are some old lizards and young ones, but the guy who was badly injured seems to have not much time left because his wounds began to rot. Jael and the others were also aware about that because that injured lizard could have died a long time ago, but they do not have an idea how he still keeps up to them. However, they are still grateful that the injured lizard named Rakrak managed to block the saber-toothed tiger for them. But they know that he is fated to die with those injuries, and they also do not have much enough food to sustain. Jael still did not accept his fellow lizardmen's statements, to which one of the lizards told him to just be honest for himself. It was a cold night, and the group of lizards gathered to sleep through the night. Rakrak does not seem to manage to get a peaceful sleep. There was another blue butterfly flying around them. It landed on Rakrak's face, which had woke him up. He tried to drive the butterfly away by moving his injured body. The butterfly flew away from him, moving towards the top of the canyon. Some of the lizards had also woken up the moment they also noticed something. They observed that Rakrak was finally leaving the group for good, and the other lizard told him to be quiet. They decided to just watch and observe him quietly. A lizard was observing Rakrak climbing on the top of the canyon. Rakrak tried his best despite a badly injured body to climb up the canyon. He wonders if the butterfly was fated to meet him because he was the only one who was reacting towards it. The butterfly continues to fly in its direction. Rakrak wondered if what he was seeing right now meant something for him. He managed to follow the butterfly, and it stopped at the peak of the canyon. There was a bright light on the top of the canyon, and the butterfly seemed to guide him towards that. Rakrak was shocked and curious at the same time upon looking at the unfamiliar thing. It was a swarm of beetles that gathered up on a tall stone in the canyon. He knew that these beetles would be more than enough to feed their entire group. Nebula was glad that Rakrak had finally recognized a miracle. He was sure that those large groups of beetles could feed the tribe for a few days. Nebula decided to take his next step for the game. However, he was shocked upon what he had witnessed. He saw that Rakrak was the one who was announcing the miracle to the group, to which supports the idea that having a high willpower could take care of things on their own. Rakrak holds the beetle in the palm of his hand. A game window appeared implying that the Rakrak's lizardmen have recognized the nameless beetle god. Nebula was confused that they had recognized the beetle instead of the butterfly. However, he just understands that there is no one that has a great name from the beginning. He looked down towards the lizards. Nebula observed that the lizardmen had gathered up on the campfire. He smiled at the thought that the Rakrak lizards would be more important to me. Nebula is happy about his decision to choose Rakrak's tribe. It was a nice blue sky in the desert. A butterfly can be seen flying through the canyon as it observes the area of the desert. Rakrak immediately saw the butterfly and decided to follow the butterfly this time. The lizards that saw the butterfly were happy because they thought that it would lead them on a group of beetles again. One of the lizards has asked Rakrak if he is going to chase the butterfly again. Rakrak felt that the winter was coming soon and the beetles would keep appearing from the cold direction. He knows that if they follow a certain direction, they will eventually freeze to death. The lizard concluded that they must not follow the butterfly for now and instead go in a different direction. However, Rakrak does not think that way. The reason for that is there is nothing that can be found within the wilderness. Rakrak does not also know about the purpose of the butterfly's appearance. Upon observing it, Nebula understands that there is nothing he can do since the lizards still lack faith for now. However, there is an in-game window that popped up implying information about the skill called Worm's Blessing, which will be unlocked when a lizard would consume a level 2 bug or even higher. Nebula aims to make Rakrak believe in him. It appears that Rakrak had already followed the butterflies without any doubts. He aimed to give Rakrak a future that he could never imagine. Suddenly, the young lizard noticed something. Rakrak called the attention of everyone to listen to what he was about to say. He told them that the nameless beetle god had brought them a sanctuary. The lizard was left in awe upon witnessing the beautiful place for them. They cheered all together because they were happy about another miracle that had happened for them. All of them were glad that they would finally survive, and they exclaimed that they were right to believe in Rakrak. The divinity level of the lizard had increased. The level of the small area bug had already increased into 2. Another window popped up that implies the possibility of acquiring the blessing of bugs. Nebula asked Rakrak indirectly if he really does want to know what he desires to happen. He immediately decided that Rakrak would become a priest. Nebula pressed a button to confirm his decision because he wanted to use Rakrak as a medium to express his will to the Lizardmen. Rakrak smiles as he looks up into the sky. He receives a blessing from Nebula that would be beneficial for him in the future. The light of the full moon shines through the night. The Lizardmen were sleeping peacefully in their new sanctuary. On the other hand, a dragonfly can be seen flying around them. It landed directly into Rakrak's shoulder while he was sleeping. The dragonfly was calling onto him. Suddenly, Rakrak woke up in an unfamiliar place. He wonders where he was and if it was just a dream. A butterfly landed on his face. Rakrak was curious about the identity of a lizard that was standing in front of them. The unknown creature offers its hand to Rakrak. However, Rakrak just froze in place and just observed its hand. The unknown creature asked Rakrak if he would trust him and hold his hand. The slender hand with its long nails was offered in front of him. Rakrak asked the unknown creature about what he wanted to do. The hand moved in gestures to drop something for him. Rakrak was surprised and looked forward to what it could be that the creature wanted to give him. It was the skull of a horned animal. Rakrak carefully inspects the skull on both of his hands. He recognized it and raised it to make it more visible. Rakrak lifted the skull on his head level. Suddenly, the skull manifests Nebula's appearance. After a while, it had shown his full form as Nebula along with the butterflies flying around him. Rakrak felt and believed that it was the full image of the nameless beetle god. In the morning, Rakrak had conducted a meeting along with his fellow lizardmen. He was going to tell everyone about what happened in his dream. Upon telling the whole dream, each of the lizards have different understanding of what it must mean. Some of them assume the nameless beetle god was asking Rakrak to sacrifice a buffalo for him. Jael responded that hunting a buffalo would be such a huge risk because it would only be possible if they went deep into the wilderness. The lizard reasoned that the one who wanted the buffalo offering was the one who brought them sanctuary, but Jael clarifies that he only wanted to protect their group from any danger. Jael was aware that hunting a buffalo comes with a huge risk because in order for them to reduce the casualties, all of the lizardmen must step up. He asked everyone if they would take responsibility to protect the weak, which made the lizard think twice for the decision. Rakrak agreed to Jael about what he just said. He knows that hunting a buffalo would put huge risk for the whole group and they must not put them in danger. Suddenly, Rakrak decided that he would just go alone for the hunt, which made the lizard shocked about his sudden decision. Rakrak told everyone that the nameless beetle god had given him a blessing. Jael was curious about what Rakrak had been trying to tell them. It appears that Rakrak's shoulder was completely healed. He also cannot believe the miracle that happened to him because he was healed the moment he had woken up after receiving the blessing. Also, Rakrak also noticed that his shoulders were all suddenly covered with black scale marks. The marks were similar on the beetle. Jael admits that it was indeed a strange thing, but there is one thing he was sure of. He told Rakrak that it was not a valid reason to go hunt a buffalo alone. Rakrak proceeded to showcase his strength that he had received from God. He held his spear aiming to throw it with his full power in a certain direction. Rakrak aimed it towards the baobab tree that was once near them. The impact from the spear had completely blown up the upper part of the tree. It made the other lizard completely left in shock. The baobab tree was completely destroyed and only that left is the trunk. Rakrak approached the tree and pulled the spear from it. The other lizard commended him about his amazing power he possesses. The old man was also left shocked about what happened to the tree. Rakrak does not want everyone to die in vain. Suddenly, the lizardmen suddenly noticed something. Upon hearing it, Rakrak laughed and smiled. He called the attention of everyone and looked at what they needed to see. Rakrak told them that there was a herd of buffalo. A herd of buffalo can be seen running below the sanctuary. Jael was shocked because it was impossible that the herd would suddenly appear before them. He was aware that the buffaloes tend to move at the same place, and it does not make sense that they got lost and come all the way near their sanctuary. Rakrak smiles as he feels that it was just a pointless fight. Jael attempted to stop Rakrak, but it was already too late. Rakrak was determined to hunt one of the buffaloes. He jumped down while holding a spear in his hand as he aimed to free the lizard from hunger ever again. Rakrak threw the spear just before he landed on the ground. The spear directly hit one of the buffaloes dead right on their head. Due to the lethal impact, the buffalo fell into the ground as the other buffaloes panicked along its way. The lizards told everyone to hurriedly catch the buffalo. Rakrak was glad that God had sent him not only beetles, but also meat for them. It was a peaceful night at the Lizardmen's sanctuary. A dead buffalo can be seen hanging on a rack. It was hung upside down along with the skeleton of other buffaloes to serve as an offering to God. Rakrak knelt in front of the dead buffalo and called upon the nameless beetle god to accept their offering. The other lizard just quietly observed Rakrak as it seeks for God's acceptance for their offering. Eventually, the lizards also bowed their heads to talk to God about their offering. As the blood of the buffalo drips onto a skull, the lizards continue to chant for acceptance. Nebula noticed that the ritual was sloppy and clumsy, but all that mattered was their sincerity for the offering. He does not expect that he will gain such a considerable amount of faith. Nebula observed that the ritual was not bad for a new priest. In considering the time he had spent on gathering faith, it was really worth the effort. He implies that he was a believer of the buffalo rather than the god of wild grass that the buffalo eats. Nebula needed help from his other friends. A buffalo was walking in the middle of the desert as it spotted a patch of grass that was lined up on the ground. It got close to the grass and started eating it. Nebula suddenly remembered something. He wondered if the lizard had also started to eat the baby buffalo too. Nebula felt that it was difficult to expect that the lizards are equipped with knowledge about herding for this current stage. The sanctuary, which is the oasis, does not support many populations at once, and most of the time it will just support the race for just a few years. He observed that the lizardmen do not know a single thing about farming or ranching, and he believes that it will be a difficult thing for their future if they do not learn that. Nebula was worried about providing knowledge and skills. He knows that it was difficult to learn on their own, and also it was not advisable to directly say it because it will violate the laws of causality. Nebula does not mean that there is no way to learn that, although it will just take some time to get there. He decided to take another action. Nebula begins by giving a blessing to Rakrak. Rakrak was standing in front of the lizardmen as he received blessings from above. It was calm weather in the oasis. Some of the skeletons of the buffaloes can be seen displayed in the middle of the sanctuary. The bones were piled up to form an altar as Jael noticed that Rakrak had woken up too early. Rakrak looked at them and told everyone that he had a disturbing dream from the previous night. Jael asked if it was an oracle or a dream, to which Rakrak simply answered that he was not sure what the dream had meant. In his dream, the altar that they had built was shaking aggressively recently. The pond of blessings that they had protected in the sanctuary does not produce any more fish. Grass and ground became very dry to the point that no plants can survive on it. The lizard said that it was far from the future. He added that there is nothing to worry about since God has taken care of them, and Rakrak replied that he also believes in God. However, Rakrak understands that gods will be more difficult to understand for them. He knows that they will need to be very careful in understanding its meaning because they may commit mistakes and betray God's will. Rakrak was afraid that they would come to that point. He carefully observes the desert as he sits on top of the skeleton. Suddenly, he noticed something. Rakrak called the attention of Jael to hurriedly come up with him to see what he was seeing. He pointed in a certain direction to which Jael had also noticed. A group of an unknown creature was running towards their sanctuary. Rakrak now understood why the altar shook aggressively in his dream. It appears that the other species of lizardmen who kicked them out on their tribe was heading towards claiming what is theirs. A group of lizardmen was heading towards them as one of them was riding a huge species of lizard that was specialized for transportation. Rakrak and Jael was shocked upon the sudden appearance of these creatures. They had recognized the blue scales and huge body from before. However, the only thing that they worry about is that it is not common for the lizardmen to ride a huge monster like that. Rakrak observed that their huge numbers meant that the entire tribe had arrived for them. Their sanctuary from his last dream had finally made sense because it would be the possible result that they would let these lizardmen reach their place. However, Jael was thinking about another reason. Jael thinks that Manyun had eaten up all the wetlands by himself, but Rakrak was not sure about that. They are worrying if these lizardmen already knew about their current sanctuary, but Rakrak assures that their current place cannot be seen unless they will climb up the canyon. Jael agrees that it will be possible that they may pass without even knowing the existence of their sanctuary when suddenly a shout can be heard from a distance. It was their fellow lizardmen who were shouting about the name of their sanctuary that was provided by the nameless beetle god. It appears that they were shouting towards the blue-skinned lizardmen tribe and told them that they cannot even take a single step inside their sanctuary. The blue-skinned lizardmen tribe had immediately noticed them standing on the canyon. Rakrak and Jael was kind of disappointed because they forgot that they have lizardmen who patrols each day. Rakrak pats Jael's shoulder to not worry anymore. He told him that this may be one of God's plans. Jael was confused about what Rakrak must be meaning to say as Rakrak proceeded to grab his spear. Rakrak thinks that God had given them this situation, to which Jael asked if he was saying that God was testing them. Rakrak answered that maybe it was not just a test but a mission for them. He thinks that it was a mission to accept and save every lizardman that once belonged to them. However, Jael was still worried about a certain lizardman. He told Rakrak if that lizardman was a kind to have the same idea as him, why would he throw away weak lizards into the wilderness? Suddenly, a butterfly approaches the sanctuary. Rakrak immediately noticed it. He was thinking carefully if it was really God's will, and he was having a hard time thinking through this situation. Rakrak looked and observed the butterfly. He just decided to clear all his worries away and just do what he can do in this situation. Rakrak walked upon the sanctuary while holding a spear along with his tribe members. Nebula commends Rakrak for understanding exactly what he was wanting to say. Nebula aims to reunite Rakrak's tribe and the Blue Hide tribe in order for them to gain more population and have technological advancement. However, it was also strange for him that Rakrak had made the decision just on his own. He wonders if what had influenced Rakrak to decide is his own high will power. Nebula realized that Rakrak must have decided his will the moment that the blue-skinned tribe came out to explore wetlands. He was still glad that Rakrak did not make a mistake. Rather, he commends Rakrak for being a highly willed leader of the tribe. He wishes to establish a strong belief. Instead of controlling everything for himself, he would be able to express his will more efficiently. The blue-skinned tribe looked up at the Rakrak's lizardmen. One of them called the Rakrak's lizardmen as the noisy ones, then asked if they are the ones who are living around here. Rakrak's lizardmen shouted that the area was in their protection, and this is their own sanctuary. The blue-skinned lizard tribe leader was glad to hear that. He further asked the Rakrak tribe if what they have around their sanctuary, to which they had responded that it was none of his concern. Suddenly, someone answered from behind that they have bushes and trees. They also have prey in the sanctuary. Rakrak walked upon them as he expressed that they lastly have a god in this place. The blue-skinned hide tribe leader was not familiar with the word god, and Rakrak clarified that this place where he was standing was the domain of the nameless beetle god. However, he cannot seem to believe Rakrak's statement and thinks that he was talking crazy. The leader told Rakrak to leave the place. He threatens Rakrak's tribe that if they don't want to get hurt, they must leave their sanctuary immediately. The monster fiercely smiled towards them with evil intent. The leader thinks that regardless of their number, they cannot be beaten easily. He insulted Rakrak that if he was a leader for a long time, he should just be knowledgeable about basic mathematics. Rakrak just shrugged what he had heard and smiled. He put out his spear. Rakrak pointed his spear to the leader as he expressed that he does not want to fight him. Upon hearing it, the blue-skinned leader was shocked. The blue-skinned lizards were also intrigued about what Rakrak had said, and Rakrak added that their poor people had lost their homes from them. Rakrak told them that poor people like them should have come into the arms of God. He finally told everyone that God will take care of them according to his will. The blue-skinned leader just smiled. Eventually, he laughed furiously. The leader reiterates that Rakrak does not know about doing math. Rakrak responded with a smile and told him that at least he knows God. He posed himself and pointed the spear to prepare for combat. The leader became annoyed and implied that Rakrak was just talking nonsense. He charged the monster forward to engage in an offensive attack on Rakrak's tribe. The blue-skinned tribe leader engages himself along with the monster for combat. Rakrak felt afraid upon seeing himself engaging in another fight for his life. He held his spear even tighter to compose himself in the current situation. Rakrak wishes for God to give him courage for this. The tribe leader and the monster jumped towards Rakrak. Suddenly, Rakrak's spear broke. He froze in a moment, knowing that his only weapon got unusable anymore. The tribe leader smiled upon witnessing that Rakrak's weapon had malfunctioned. As Rakrak cannot do anything in the current situation, the monster's claws were coming towards him. Suddenly, an in-game window had popped up implying a civilization clash where two tribes happened to come into a contact, which both gained experience points significantly. Nebula sighed in relief because that was a close call for him. He proceeded to make another decision. The game observed that Nebula had been focusing a lot of his attention to a specific tribe recently, which would enable the tribe on the territory. The new skills are available to use and his confirmation is now needed. Nebula pressed the yes button. The scenario has been brought back onto the current moment as the monster unleashes its claws to Rakrak. Rakrak times appear to be slowed. Suddenly, Rakrak's eyes gleamed a bright blue light as he looked up into the sky. It appears to fall on Rakrak's direction, which had been summoned by Nebula, aiming to give him a skill for the fight. The monster successfully landed his claws to Rakrak just right before the light had landed. The blue tribe leader laughed as he witnessed how Rakrak caught the fatal blow from the monster. However, the hand of the monster seems to suffer some graze on it and Rakrak was nowhere near them. Rakrak's body emits a strong blue aura and also manages to reposition himself away from the monster. The light image of Nebula can be seen manifested behind, which symbolizes that he had been lended a strength from God. The blue-skinned tribe leader is clueless about how Rakrak managed to avoid his attack. He positioned himself and the monster to prepare for another attack and was confident enough that his attack would land on Rakrak this time. Rakrak seems unfazed as he was covered by a powerful magical aura. He immediately used his skill called Status. In just a moment, he had been able to scan his opponent's status and it showed him the name, level, attributes, and skill of his enemy. However, he also knew that his main concerns were to prioritize taking care of the monster named Drake because it provides mobility to the tribe leader. He also saw his status where it shows that he had gained 30 more levels with all of his attributes, which make him far superior compared to the tribe leader of blue-skinned lizards. Rakrak has now gathered enough courage and confidence to face them. He began to take a step forward, which made Drake surprised when he suddenly closed their distance in an instant. Rakrak placed his hand onto Drake's mouth as Nebula explained the skill in the background. He recently gained a skill called Strong Avatar, which gives him an additional status called Divinity. It deals 200 times the maximum value of his power, which occurs naturally. The blue tribe leader was confused by Rakrak's sudden burst of movement. It appears that Rakrak's current attribute power was in a total of 630. The blue tribe leader suddenly went upside down as Drake went down with him. Rakrak managed to throw Drake along with the leader and slam it towards the ground. The blue-skinned lizard members were shocked about what they had witnessed. Rakrak just showed everyone the overwhelming difference between him and their leader in terms of power. Even Rakrak's tribe members had been left in awe because they did not expect that Rakrak possessed this immense strength. In just a short moment, Rakrak completely overturned the situation and it had been witnessed by both of the tribes. Drake was lying unconsciously on the ground. Rakrak's tribe cheered about what their leader just did, and they are confident that they just won the fight for territory. Rakrak looked back to his members with a serious expression on his face. It made his other members wonder what might have happened to him. On the other hand, the tribe leader was still conscious despite suffering injuries from the fight. He wonders what trick Rakrak could have pulled as he gets his knife back from the ground. The tribe leader attempts to land a final attack while Rakrak was not looking for him. He was confident that his calculations were never wrong. However, Rakrak seems to have felt some presence approaching him. Just before the leader lands his attack, Rakrak unleashes a powerful back slap that directly hits on its face. The slap was powerful enough to make the tribe leader lose its consciousness and fell onto the ground. Rakrak looked towards the blue-skinned tribe members, asking who wanted to be his next opponent. Upon witnessing Rakrak's strength, the blue-skinned tribe members did not hesitate to drop all their weapons. Eventually, the blue-skinned tribe members knelt before him, saying that they had sworn an allegiance to Rakrak's tribe. The magical aura from Rakrak's body had gradually disappeared. He began to smile as he cannot believe that their suffering and fear was finally over. Rakrak cannot believe what had happened because he felt that the god had just come through his body, lending its strength. Nebula was also happy upon witnessing what Rakrak had accomplished. It was a peaceful night at the Rakrak tribe sanctuary. Both of the tribe members had gathered near the altar, and a campfire, seemingly enjoying each other's company. A member of the blue-skinned tribe asked one of the Rakrak tribe members if they were the one who went out into the wilderness, and why their scale color is different from them. Rakrak's tribe members confidently answered that it was indeed them. He further told them that they were following a nameless beetle god that drastically changed their tribe and made them even stronger than before. He was thankful for God because they could have died a long time in the wilderness. A blue-skinned tribe looks up onto the altar's direction. He observed how powerful this god must be, but he wondered why the tribe members itself does not have an idea what had happened to Rakrak's sudden power-up. He proceeded to look at Rakrak and had a question on his head. The blue-skinned lizard wonders if such powerful lizardmen exist with them because he does not expect to encounter something like that. Jael called Rakrak's attention. He asked Rakrak if it would turn out fine, in which Rakrak wondered about his question. Jael was concerned about the sudden increase of their population, that their numbers have multiplied 6 times than the original. He knows that the sanctuary will eventually fail to sustain all of their needs. Even just thinking about that, Jael felt sad about it. Rakrak simply answered that they will have to go out if that was the case, which made Jael surprised about his decision. Jael does not like the idea about going out into the wilderness again because he believes that they can't just wander around into the unknown without having any answers. Rakrak just disagreed with what Jael had said because he firmly believes that the answers lies within their journey. The answer had already been sent by God through their brothers. A sound can be heard in their sanctuary. Rakrak's tribe members were trying to stop Drake for being aggressive. Drake proceeded to swing its tail towards the Lizardmen. Luckily, the Lizardmen managed to dodge it. He eventually fell into the ground as the result of avoiding it, which had made the other Lizardmen nervous about their current situation. Drake was becoming even more aggressive towards them. It appears to be tied onto the tree, and with just its bare strength he seemingly makes the tree move a little. One of the lizards who was guarding Drake was worried that they would get scolded. Suddenly, Drake became nervous upon witnessing someone. It was Rakrak who entered the scene and approached the monster. In Drake's mind, the moment was still clear when he had been slammed onto the ground by him. He felt nervous as Rakrak got closer to him. Rakrak just smiled at Drake and offered him food. He told Drake to come to him and accept his offering. Drake seems to have been surprised about his behavior. He carefully smells the food and reaches his mouth to it. Drake finally took a small bite on the food. It seems to have calmed down and continues to eat the food, which made the other lizards surprised that Rakrak managed to tame it. Drake seems to have enjoyed the food, and Rakrak had immediately understood that it wanted more food. Rakrak puts more food into the ground. Drake immediately walks towards to eat it. Rakrak believes that there must be a good reason to keep this monster alive. Drake looked at Rakrak, which signifies that it wanted more food from him. Rakrak just smiled at it and denied it because he wanted Drake to know how to be patient if he wanted to be with them more. Drake became sad upon hearing it. It just sat on the floor and laid his body to rest. Rakrak proceeds to leave and tells the lizard guard to just notify him if Drake causes trouble again. The lizardmen went speechless about it. Rakrak can be seen sitting in front of Jael and one of the blue lizards. He holds a dagger onto his hand, wondering if there is a skill that can produce a weapon like this. One of the blue lizards complained that if their tribe leader was not stubborn, he would produce better blades a long time from now. Rakrak wondered about what made him think of that, to which the blue lizard just replied that it was only because of trees. Rakrak further asked why the trees got involved. The blue lizard informed Rakrak that they have used a lot of wood in the process of making weapons. Rakrak asked if it was made by lighting a bonfire, and the blue lizard said no, because the wood needs to be burned in order to have special fuel. He carefully inspected the properties of a weapon. Rakrak got what he had meant and decided that he would take some time to think about it. Suddenly, he noticed someone approaching him. It was another blue lizard that was walking in his direction. It began to speak to Rakrak, asking if he needed someone to guide him. Rakrak assumes that he must be wandering around the place. The lizard replied that he was indeed a wanderer and described himself as an old lizard that was going around the place looking for something. He implied that this habit made him experience and learn something he had never seen before. Rakrak was amazed at how the lizard described that he had learned to see the way. The lizard was continuously looking for a place that will sustain their survival for a very long time. However, he does not guarantee if this time it will be the same scenario he is trying to imagine. Rakrak asked to confirm if that place could possibly be located nearby in the sanctuary, in which the lizard had replied that it was indeed just around their place. Rakrak was glad that it was not just far away, and it will be possible for them to reach it sooner or later. However, the tribe that was staying in that sanctuary is not guaranteed to be a friendly one, and they will have no choice but to fight them if they go against them. The blue lizard agreed on what Rakrak was trying to say to him. Rakrak proceeded to ask the blue lizard this time. He further asked the blue lizard what would be his way to give him faith. The blue lizard nervously looked at Rakrak. He then pointed his finger up in the sky. He implies that the answer that Rakrak was looking for was present in the sky. Rakrak wonders why it would be in the sky. The blue lizard then continues to say that it was just not only the sky. It was a peaceful night as the stars shone upon the sky. Rakrak realized that the blue lizard was referring to the stars. He cannot help but wonder if the stars in the sky are moving, in which the blue lizard also does not know. The blue lizard accepted Rakrak's conclusion that the stars might be moving, but he has his own opinion about it. He believes that if a man knows the path of the stars, it means that he can effectively follow the path of the man without having to get confused at a time. Rakrak smiles as he gets a meaningful response from the blue lizard. The blue lizard told Rakrak if he would gain some faith if he proceeded to tell them the movement of the stars, and Rakrak accepted his offer. It continues to point up to the sky, explaining each of the stars' movements to Rakrak. He then bids goodbye to Rakrak and tells him that he will check the stars again at the same time tomorrow. The lizard who was guarding Drake was patiently standing to do his duty. Rakrak proceeded to visit Drake to check up on him, and the guard told Rakrak that he seemed to be a little dissatisfied and was not in the mood to talk to anyone. However, it seems that giving meals to Drake on time will make him more gentle. Rakrak was thankful that Drake was doing good for now. The guard proceeds to tell Rakrak that they will need to find a way to gather enough food before they explore the wilderness. The guard still has some suggestions on his mind. He recalled the moment when Rakrak had tamed Drake by giving it some food that made him think it would be possible to tame some of the animals within the wilderness. Rakrak understood what the lizard was trying to suggest. He told the guard that it will be possible when they try the method he is known for. Rakrak proceeded to tell him an example. The guard wondered about what Rakrak was trying to show him. Rakrak looked in one direction. A small group of buffaloes can be seen gathering on the side of the canyons. Upon looking at them, the Rakrak's tribe had gained a skill called herding. It was known in human history it had split into two separate branches at some point. The first branch was when they had practiced farming, which utilizes nature for their survival. The other one is pastoralism, where they learned how to manage animals for their benefit. Nebula still understood its point, even though it just came as information from the game. He knows that practicing farming would be a stable way to produce food because some of the successful civilizations also started by utilizing large rivers for farming. He remembered the time he had decided to choose the tribe of Lizardmen. This tribe has a strong physical attribute and huge environmental adaptability. For this reason, he believes that pastoralism would be a thing that is more suitable for them. Nebula observed something in this pack. He also noticed a technology that was previously introduced will possibly give him wings. It was the technology of ironware. A melted metal can be seen lying on the stone, and it seems that it had recently come from the melting furnace. The lizardmen observed the blue lizard doing the process of ironware in order to produce a metallic material. The lizard spins a stick inside a stone to produce an air pressure towards the furnace. A hammer had struck a melted metal, forming a pointed material that resembles a blade. It can be seen that more of the weapons had already been created. Nebula observed that the tribe had finally mastered the basics of ironware, although the product may be softer than the bronzeware. Rakrak's tribe had no choice but to utilize these iron tools because they had previously relied on stone tools. Nebula continuously observes the tribe within his screen. He also noticed that he had unexpectedly gained something essential. It was the old blue lizard who was knowledgeable about the stars' movements. Nebula was aware that it can be a form of astronomy. This lizard has the capability to produce knowledge on the better understanding of astronomy. Especially Rakrak was able to listen to this information. However, it was still too early for this age to call it astronomy, especially since they are still in the Iron Age. Nebula hopes that the lizards would put this knowledge into some good use. The blue lizard continued to talk to Rakrak about the stars in the night. It was a peaceful night in the sanctuary, and the stars were scattered, providing light in the area. The metal blades were furtherly formed into a spear. Rakrak has the knowledge that the stars are guides of the sky. He peacefully sat above the canyon to observe their sanctuary from above. Rakrak had no choice but to do what he had on his mind. The sanctuary was still quiet as ever. A light of the fire was producing smoke, gradually covering their altar. The lizardmen were standing in the front silently observing. Rakrak told everyone that it has been a long time since God had brought them into their current sanctuary. He told his fellow tribesmen that they had even reunited with their brothers again, and they still had chosen to stay with them and welcome them to their sanctuary. A butterfly can be seen flying around the area, observing them as they meet all together. Rakrak said that they could have lived for a longer time in the sanctuary without even having to worry about food. But if they had decided to do that, all of their brothers would have died in the darkness and wilderness. However, Rakrak firmly believes that God always wanted salvation, and not exclusion. He further added that it will be a good thing as long as it benefits more people. All of the Lizardmen were focused as they listened to Rakrak's speech. Rakrak told everyone that they will now leave the sanctuary. He called the Lizardmen who have the name of Stargazer. Rakrak introduced him to his fellow Lizardmen that he was the one who was educating him about the movement of the stars for many days, and Rakrak had confirmed that Stargazer was actually telling them the truth. He announced that Stargazer would be their personal guide in their upcoming journey. Rakrak had decided to entrust Stargazer to help through the path that they had chosen. He proceeded to let Stargazer explain to everyone about his plan on leading their way. Stargazer began by pointing his hand onto the stars. He told everyone that on the moment that the morning sun rises, they will head to the right side of the sun. They informed them that they must keep walking in the same direction for 10 days straight. He further added that after 10 days have passed, they will go for another 15 days to go right to follow the Rotten Lakes path. Another 3 days would be needed when they reach the desolate mountain paths and the valley paths. Stargazer had finally informed them that they will eventually reach the endless forest once they have finished their journey. It was known to have a variety of wild beasts and a huge biodiversity where the other races were also present as well. Rakrak was glad about the idea of having a good area to live in and sustain their survivability. Rakrak thanked Stargazer and let him go back along with the Lizardmen. He stepped his feet to an elevated rock. The Lizardman was now looking up at him. Rakrak stood in front of the crowd as the lights from the fire highlighted his body. One of the Lizardmen expressed respect towards Rakrak. Rakrak further asked everyone if they wouldn't decide to eat any of the buffalo that they have caught from the last day. Upon hearing it, one of the lizards was surprised. A smoke can be seen coming from the sanctuary. Rakrak can be seen standing in front of the altar after he had said something about eating the buffaloes, to which one of the lizards got confused by his statement. One of the lizards replied that they were just not hungry at the time. Rakrak just smiled at them as they heard their own reason. He told everyone that they had indeed done a lot of work to catch the water buffalo, and still they did not even eat one of them. One of the lizards agreed that they indeed worked hard for that. However, they really felt that they weren't particularly hungry. The lizard added that he was worrying about something, so they decided to hold back for now. They are worried that they must save some food for later because they might suffer from hunger if they decided to eat the buffaloes. Rakrak was carefully thinking about his decision. He commended the lizard who had explained their side about his question. The lizard was confused about it. Rakrak reiterates his question to the lizard that it held back his hunger even though they badly wanted to eat the buffalo. He further asked the lizard if he is willing to endure his hunger just for the sake of his future. Rakrak commends the lizard's perseverance and aims to reward him for that. He handed the lizard a metal spear as a compensation. Upon witnessing it, some of the lizards were shocked. The metal spear was passed on to the particular lizard. The spear had reflected the light that made the lizard left in awe. Rakrak had eventually decided to reward those who decided to follow the idea of the lizard because they are worthy to be the warrior of the tribe to protect them. The lizards that have received the weapon were happy and kept staring at the metal spear. Because of this scenario, the blue lizards also desired to have the same weapon. Jael was standing among the Lizardmen as he was wondering what Rakrak was planning to do. He suddenly noticed something. Jael started to get the skull of the buffalo. Rakrak announced to everyone to come forward one by one. He had called upon those who had the heart of true warriors. Rakrak puts a buffalo skull onto his head as he blesses them with the word that may God's protection be with him. He told everyone that their journey would just succeed only by having such huge patience. Rakrak placed the buffalo skull onto a lizard's head. The lizard was declared to be a bone warrior. He believes that this lizard must be some sort of God's will. It had made those who had been honored get a teary eye. A wood can be seen burning on the ground. Rakrak was wearing the skull of a buffalo as the light of the flames shines upon his body. A group of the bone warriors has lined up in front of him. Rakrak announced that they will now leave the sanctuary. He firmly believes that God's will is with them and they are not bound with the sanctuary anymore. Jael and Stargazer were quietly observing them from afar. He ordered everyone to carve the nameless beetle god in their heads. Rakrak encouraged everyone that they must move forward no matter what challenges would face them along their path and endure their hunger. He believes that the metal spear would benefit them. Rakrak motivated the Lizardmen to keep moving ahead and endure all the pain. He told everyone that the beetle god would look after them. Rakrak feels the cold breeze of the wind. He had finally said what he believed about God's will. Rakrak wanted to seek forgiveness in the name of nameless beetle god. Nebula deeply knows that there is no need to apologize to him. He knows that he made the right decision to make Rakrak as the priest of the Lizardmen tribe. Nebula places his hand onto his screen to make an interaction. The growth of the new lizard man named Yer went great because it had already increased its warrior level. He also noticed some changes in Rakrak's statistics. Nebula saw that Rakrak's attribute had already taken the spotlight. He observed how Rakrak does not fail to reach all of his expectations. Nebula decided to pour all of his attention and assist Rakrak on their journey. It is now the beginning of their tribe's journey, and the light of the sun provides light on their way. While in the middle of their journey, Drake suddenly stopped for a moment. Drake suddenly passed out and fell into the ground, and Rakrak tried to wake him up, but Stargazer believes that Drake must be so tired. Rakrak asks Stargazer if it was still okay if they will take some rest, to which Stargazer had no choice but to consider it because they need to restore their energy to go on. Upon hearing the Stargazer's answer, Rakrak told his fellow lizardmen to take a rest for now. Jael added that it will just be a short break, so they must take the time to regain their energy. Rakrak has a lot of questions inside his head as he was clueless about what might happen through their journey, whether they will succeed or not. He silently looked up into the sky. Rakrak asked Stargazer to confirm if 3 days had already passed, and Stargazer confirmed that it was indeed 3 days since then. He carefully assessed their current situation. Rakrak realized that his whole tribe got very tired with just only 3 days having passed, and they are also running out of food supply. For now, the best thing he can do is just hope for another miracle from God, when suddenly one of his tribe members calls his attention. The Skull Warrior informed them that a flock had suddenly appeared and they were heading in their direction. He saw that it was the Scaleless tribe, which made Rakrak concerned. A group of orcs was walking in the middle of the desert. One of them was happy upon witnessing something. He told the others that they must take the opportunity to leave quickly while there is no one stopping them on their way. The orc had previously suffered from the worst monster before. Rakrak was spotted from a distance along with Jael and Stargazer. The orcs were shocked upon seeing their presence. Rakrak confirmed that their tribe was really scaleless. However, he is still wondering if he will just call the orcs as fire moths for now. The orcs were still shocked and they were frozen at their place. The Skull Warriors were fiercely looking for them, carefully observing all the happenings. One of the orcs suddenly realized that he had a stone hammer on his hand. He suddenly dropped the tool without any second doubt. He immediately knelt in front of Rakrak and apologized. The orc explained that there was just a misunderstanding because they only wanted to get out of this place as fast as they could. Rakrak was curious about what the orc was trying to tell him. The orc sadly informed them that they had left their home and ran away because they were concerned for their fellow tribe members, so they took the risk to find something to eat, and he proceeded to show the food to them. Rakrak asked them why they had decided to leave. He is curious why they didn't consider the risk of the danger of wilderness. An orc pointed in the direction of a hill. He implied that they had used to live there and things were better back then, even though they are not rich. The orc got sad upon mentioning that a monster had suddenly appeared before them. Rakrak was curious about what the monster did. Nebula was quietly observing into his screen, trying to assess the current situation. He also heard about what the orc had mentioned about the appearance of an unknown monster. Nebula pointed his finger to make an action into the screen. A huge stone sculpture can be seen in the bottom part, surrounded by the canyon. It was placed above a huge scaled monster that appeared to be a giant centipede. It was known by the name of Abomination. The Abomination is one of the ancient crustaceans that has a level of 9 and a huge number of attributes. The game Lost World described this creature as the manifestation of the old vanished players from the game. Even though the player had already disappeared from the world, it had still remained existing. The orc was pointing towards the Abomination, which signifies that it was the monster he was referring to. Rakrak was speechless upon seeing this giant deadly creature. He immediately recognized the creature in the name of Abomination. This monster has a poisonous skill that was imbued within its fangs, and it came from the blessing of an unknown fallen avatar. Nebula knew that the creature was too strong for them to fight in their current power level. Rakrak was carefully observing the monster from above. Suddenly, it made a sound and made a sudden movement. The ground immediately shook and the Skull Warriors felt it. The orc calmed everyone from panicking and assured them that the creature was just sleep-talking, to which Jael consults Rakrak if they should run away from this dangerous being. Rakrak asked Stargazer about how long would it take for them to take the other route, and Stargazer answered that it will take them roughly 8 days if they decide to follow the mountain range. He carefully assessed if their tribe could endure 8 more days for a journey. Nebula observed how Rakrak feels hesitant about his decisions, and it was just understandable. He knows how Rakrak was unsure about his future actions, since his tribe members are also afraid of both choices. However, he also considers that taking the other route was a good decision for them. Nebula carefully observes Rakrak and patiently waits about what Rakrak would do in this situation. Rakrak and Jael was quietly observing the monster, thinking for a way to solve their problem. On top of the canyon, the light of the sun shines upon the stones. Rakrak saw something above. A stone boulder can be seen lying on top of the canyon. Upon seeing this, Jael encourages Rakrak that they must fight this time. Rakrak looks at him and listens to his suggestions. He saw that Jael had also increased his attributes and level as Jael tells him that they now have the advantage to fight. The orc wondered what Jael meant by having an advantage. Jael further added that he observed that the metal craftsman used the quickest method to increase the temperature in melting the metals, and asked Rakrak if he could still recall how it is done. Rakrak sat in front of Jael and asked him if the craftsman he was referring to used some of the special tools. Jael remembered that the craftsman had used a tool called bellows, which takes a lot of air with minimal effort. Rakrak carefully thinks again regarding this new information. He finally understood that Jael was telling them that they must utilize the tool to produce great power without exerting huge effort, but he is still skeptical because the tool might take some time to produce. Rakrak concludes that they do not need some complicated tools to help them. He told Jael that simple tools would be enough for the fight. A boulder could be seen on top of the canyon, and it began to move a little. With some little movements, some of the smaller rock debris began to fall. A voice can be heard that started the count to move the boulder all the way to the edge of the canyon. The stone was finally reaching the very edge of the cliff with the use of a wooden leverage to push it. Jael ordered everyone to take a deep breath to unleash a great force. The wood was helping them to move the stone. They began to lift the wood all together as they counted, ensuring that they were synchronized. Along with the other boulders, they counted once again to make it fall towards the monster. Nebula commends the idea of the tribe on rolling heavy rocks and crushing the monster into death, which was actually a bright idea. However, they must ensure that they would catch the abomination effectively. Nebula suggests that it would have a great result if all the rocks would hit the creature at the same time, but only if it was possible. Jael ordered everyone aiming to roll the rocks even faster in order to deal greater damage. They counted into 2 altogether as they firmly held the wood. In just a moment, the boulder was lifted, which means that it would now fall into the sleeping monster. The tribesman smiles as they had succeeded in moving the boulders, but Jael was curious if it would work. 3 large boulders crashing onto the slope of the canyon, falling at the same time. The abomination had suddenly looked up, seemingly noticing the boulder that was falling into his direction. However, the rocks already made a considerable distance, and it was too late for the creature to react. The boulder directly hit the creature on its head. Some of the rock debris was scattered into the sky. The tribesmen looked down to see if their plan had worked. Nebula saw that the plan didn't work like it should. The monster had screamed fiercely towards them. Rakrak was surprised that it does not affect the monster after all. The abomination got angry and seems to not be affected by the attack, even though the rock had managed to crush a part of its shell. The creature had begun to crawl upwards towards the direction of Jael. Jael immediately ordered the other lizards to hurriedly get the rest of the rocks. Nebula stood up as he realized that it was too late for them to act. He jumped out from his chair and transferred his consciousness to Rakrak. One of the tribesmen was confused about the sudden movement of the wooden lift. It appears that Nebula decided to take over the situation and forcefully lifted the wood to make the rocks fall on the cliff. The boulder was launched onto the air that made the tribesmen cheer in relief. Nebula in Rakrak's body quickly repositions himself, getting close to the 3rd boulder. He began to push the huge rock with just his bare strength. Rakrak's arms went bigger as he tried to move the boulder with all of his might. He took a deep breath to prepare for another powerful lift. Rakrak finally pushed the 3rd boulder. He ordered everyone to try their best and keep pushing some boulders as the 2 rocks had begun falling towards the creature. However, he was sure that the creature would not be happy about it. Rakrak decided to get a metal spear aiming to charge towards the abomination. Jael tried to catch Rakrak's attention, but Rakrak was still determined to kill the monster. Rakrak's eyes gleam in blue as he aims his spear towards the monster. He directly threw the spear onto the 2 large boulders, piercing it in the direction of the monster. The rocks got crushed into multiple pieces. Rakrak's spear managed to hit the abomination, crushing the stone on top of its body that protects its weak spot. The creature shouted in pain. As it was distracted by the series of attacks, another set of boulders fell towards it. This time, the rock fell into its mouth. However, there are still much larger rocks beneath the smaller one. It had managed to crush the creature onto the ground. Jael was surprised about what Rakrak had just done. Rakrak landed on both of his feet. He witnesses how the abomination fell into the ground. Nebula immediately went back to his seat and was relieved that the hunting had succeeded. They have successfully defeated the deadly creature. A window have popped up, implying that his tribe had successfully slain the abomination. Rakrak's tribe cheers on their victory. Nebula observed that his faith level was dramatically rising. He also gained another more important item, which is the hunting rewards. Nebula wanted to get these rewards, so he decided to slay the creature in the first place, and he had received the essence of abomination. The essence of abomination is an uncommon resource for each god to create something that does not currently exist. Nebula knew that he can now finally create a creature that would help him increase his faith level because these godly creatures would spread the will of God just by existing. The creatures that have been created are also able to increase their level and status that can obtain classes such as Apostle and Avatar. However, Nebula was curious if the creation system would be the same as the previous game. He carefully held the essence within his hands as he thought of a creature that he would soon create. The tribesmen stand near the dead abomination. One of them pulled some of its legs, checking if their meat can be used as the source of food even though it has a foul smell. He began to bite a small chunk of its meat. The lizard told them that it was edible, and the taste was also not that bad. Jael observed that the meat of the creature is difficult to eat without being cooked. One of the lizardmen thought of a solution that would make it easier to consume by adding another set of ingredients. Jael said that they could instead add edible fragrant grass and cook it over a fire to cover up the foul smell of the meat. The meat of the abomination has finally been cooked with fragrances all over it. Rakrak took a small chunk of meat to taste it. He observed that it was kind to have a bland taste but still edible, and Jael told him that he just tried cooking it, to which Rakrak was not familiar. Jael answered that it was just topped with edible scented herbs along with cooking it over a fire. Rakrak smiles because it has a foul smell before, but cooking seems to solve the problem, and he asked Jael to teach him how to cook. He took a much larger chunk of meat and Jael called his attention. Jael noticed that the orc tribal leader has also had a successor. He told Rakrak that he will need a companion for the future. Upon hearing it, Rakrak was surprised. Jael further told him that he was now going old and it is a necessary thing for the tribe to be stable. Rakrak understood that Jael might be referring to a partner. Jael asked if Rakrak never really thought of having one, which would make him wonder what his own role was in Rakrak's tribe. Rakrak fell silent for a while and thought carefully. Suddenly, something had entered his mind. Jael wondered about what Rakrak would say to him. Rakrak told Jael that there is something shining behind him. It appears to be a golden tablet that has written scriptures in it. Rakrak assumed that it might have been inside of the creature's stone structure on its back before. Ir attempted to bite through the golden tablet, and Stargazer told him that it is a kind of metal called gold. Rakrak implied that he had already seen it way back when a metal craftsman showed him different types of metal. In order to make it shine beautifully, it will need to be cleaned thoroughly, and the color of it does not change or rot even after a long time has passed. Yer complained that it does not matter if it does not rot because he cannot even eat it for himself. Then Stargazer asked if he would catch a deer around the area. Stargazer further told Yer that it was a kind of a beast that has a branch like horns, and the flavor of its meat was sweet and delicious. Rakrak carefully inspects the golden tablet. Yer asked if Rakrak would like to join him on the hunt, and Rakrak politely replied that he would not be joining him and gave him permission to go for the hunt on his own. Rakrak realized that this metal would be useful if it does not rot. Blood can be seen pouring into the ground. It turned out to be coming from a deer, and it dies and rots until it disappears. However, Rakrak compared it to the golden tablet in that it does not disappear and change as time passes. He then realized that the scriptures were written on the golden tablet to preserve some message on it. Jael appeared behind and told him that everyone in the tribe is ready for bed. Rakrak replied that even though he did not told anyone where was going, Jael seems to knew he was here. Jael responds by telling Rakrak that he was the only lizard who wears a fur coat around them. Rakrak replied that Jael was the one who told them to wear it, and Jael said that she was going to give him something different. She told Rakrak that it was like a symbol. Rakrak was curious about what she was referring to. The dead body of a deer was surrounded by flies. Rakrak deeply thinks that this life was only full of death, that even gold would disappear in some time. Suddenly, he noticed something unusual. The flies began to write a symbol. He wondered if what he was witnessing was just an illusion because it resembles the marking on the golden tablet. Rakrak gets a piece of wooden stick, thinking that a symbol is something that does not rot rather than gold. He proceeded to write something on the ground. Rakrak quietly kneels onto the ground as he uses his wooden stick to express what he has on his mind. The sun rises as the morning comes, and the lizardmen appear to have created a shelter made from leaves. Jael was peacefully sleeping inside one of them. Suddenly, someone called her attention. She asked Rakrak if there was a problem. Rakrak told her that he has something to show to her. They both went back to where Rakrak had written a symbol. Rakrak drew a triangular symbol that refers to himself. Jael asked if the symbol was Rakrak, and Rakrak replied that it was a symbol of a male lizardman. Rakrak continues to write something on the sand. He had written another symbol which symbolizes Jael. Jael asked if what he had meant to symbolize is the female lizardman. Rakrak drew an equal symbol between them. Jael was curious about what it meant. She asked what Rakrak was trying to say to her. Rakrak smiles as he looks back at her. He explained that the symbol means that these two symbols are meant to be each other's companion. Rakrak told Jael that it was also his answer about what she had asked him before. He passed the stick onto Jael's hand. Rakrak guided her hand to draw a circle around the symbols. Jael asked if he had any idea what this meant. Rakrak smiles again. He answered, "Yes, I know." Rakrak's tribe had invented writing characters. Nebula was glad that everything was going according to his plan. He was not expecting them to have learned to write symbols so early because it was destined to happen through several more generations. Nebula had started to observe Rakrak's journey. Rakrak was hiding beneath the bush aiming to hunt the group of deers. He quickly dashes forward in order to catch the deer. Even so, it appears to be some simple hunt. However, capturing the largest prey is a tradition for the Lizardmen to present to their spouse during the wedding ceremony. Rakrak was having fun with his fellow Lizardmen. Suddenly, he noticed something. Jael was able to catch an even larger prey using her net. Upon witnessing it, Nebula laughed at the current situation. It was a peaceful day in the desert. There are some leftovers from the meat of the abomination. Jael asked if Rakrak was still doing good, and Rakrak just answered that he was doing very good because their fight with the monster must be one of the challenges they needed to overcome. Rakrak spoke to the orc and told him that they can now live here now the monster is gone because they were the original ones who had this land. Upon hearing it, the orc was left in tears. He bowed his head and thanked him sincerely. The leader of the orc tribe had introduced his son as the next leader of their group. He offered Rakrak to let his son guide them within their path since they are very familiar with this place, and Rakrak accepted his offer. The orc further told them that they have used to live in this area while being swarmed by bigger beasts and stronger tribes. He now expressed gratitude to Rakrak for making them move forward and teaching them how to face any challenges. Rakrak smiles at them as the orc added that they will never forget his kindness. It was a bright day and the sunlight shines through the leaves of the trees. Someone called the attention of Rakrak. A track of an unknown animal was seen on the grass field. Rakrak carefully examines the set of tracks. He asked Stargazer if he had any idea what kind of animal this is, and Stargazer replied that he has an idea about it. Stargazer answered that it was a tribe of frogs who walk on both of their feet, which is known as the Frogmen. It seems that it was the first time that Rakrak had heard of it. Stargazer told him that there are two types of frogmen, which are the bad and the good ones, which also have the capability of thinking like them. He added that these footprints indicate that they must have done scouting, which implies that the frogman has a lot of experience in wars. The set of footprints from them shows that there are more than 5 of them, and the number of them might be possibly greater than them. Rakrak ordered everyone to get back to their temporary base. A fire torch has lit up to serve as a light in the darkness of night. It helps their temporary shelters to be established and drive away potential predators. Rakrak told his members that they will need to set up their camps as wide as possible. One of the lizards asked Jael if they really have to do all of this, and Jael just answered that it was very important because the other tribe has a greater number than them. Jael suggested that they will need to deploy extra scouters and guards for now, and Rakrak agreed with her and added that they must make sure that everyone must be doing their part for the tribe. They both know that the other tribe must definitely be watching them. Rakrak's temporary camp can be seen located in the middle of the wilderness. A silhouette of the frogmen can be seen observing the Rakrak's tribe from afar. Few days had already passed since they had created the base, and they did not have any unfortunate encounters with the frogmen. In order to maximize their time, they have ensured that their tribe has a strong security, and Nebula was very much aware that some players might not be as successful as him. Nebula observed that the cattle breeding went smoothly. In addition, the housing techniques of their lizardmen were evolving quickly to effectively adapt to the changes in environment. The most fascinating thing is that they have effectively established the concept of writing the symbols. The other members of their tribes have shared their knowledge through the symbols in terms of teaching primitive techniques of traditional hunting. Rakrak have also carefully monitored each of their crop harvest from each member every day. This method was effective in improving their tribe's productivity in terms of seeing their own progress and hard work. Nebula was amazed by their surprising development. On the other hand, the locust swarms that were happening in the center of the continent were drastically growing. These insects have developed their nest towards the south. He also noticed that the insect territory has increased its level into 4, even though he did not expect to use this method because of the progress of other players. However, he believes that he should take advantage of the current situation since he knows that the swarm had started from the remote lands in the east. The current capability of Rakrak's tribe is currently above the average compared to other tribes. Nebula was aware that this was just the beginning of their development. He knows that in some time in the future more dangerous things would be encountered by Rakrak's tribe. The Lizardmen were carefully discussing something important in their base. Suddenly, one of the Lizardmen had called Rakrak's attention. He told everyone that there is a big problem on their way. He further informed the tribe that frogmen are currently on their temporary base. In some parts of the forest, frogmen tribes have set foot. A tribe leader of the frogmen was guarded along with larger muscular frogs. On the other hand, Rakrak was standing with Jael and Ur as his companion. Rakrak finally saw the frogmen's appearance. Suddenly, he noticed that there was a lizardman among them. He was confused as to why a lizardman would join the frogmen's tribe, which made him think that this must be an effort to make peace for them. The small portion of each of the tribes, which is the frogmen and the lizardmen, was standing against each other for a confrontation. One of the frogmen introduced himself in the name of Shunan, who is the son of their tribe leader named Olroy. He informed Rakrak that they have no intention to engage in fighting them. Rakrak observed that Shunan is being courteous in his own way. He then introduced himself as the tribal leader of lizardmen named Rakrak, and he expressed that they have no intention of engaging in a fight with them. Rakrak asked the frogmen about the reason why they would come to meet them. The frogmen silently looked at them. Shunan implies that they have come to them to inform them that they have trespassed their territory. Rakrak explained that he does not think that all of this land belongs to them, as he does not see any sign of boundaries the moment they have arrived at the place. He also added that they have also no interest in making an effort to look for a boundary. Rakrak finally apologized for their incompetence, which made the frogmen left speechless. He told the frogmen that they have come from a very far place, so they are asking for a permission to temporarily live in this land for now because they have no place to go. Rakrak called out the name of the son of a tribal leader named Shunan. He implies that Shunan must be the most qualified frogman that will grant their request in staying in the forest. Shunan answered that it was indeed possible for him to grant their wish, as he has the right authority as the next leader of their tribe. The other frogmen were speechless and confused upon hearing that. Rakrak realizes that he was right, that these frogmen are sent by the tribal leader in order to keep a close watch on them. He looked in one direction. Rakrak still has some questions on his mind about the lizardmen among them, and he knows that he will need to do his best to collect information from them. He offered the frogmen to go to their camp in order to give them a warm welcome to their temporary village. Rakrak expressed that since they have agreed to have a peaceful agreement, they should have some celebration. Shunan smiles and agrees that it was a really good idea. However, he was still skeptical because it would be difficult for them to share their trust since they only have met their tribes on this day, which made Rakrak wonder why they wouldn't want to welcome those who did them a favor. Rakrak offered if they could just have a meal right in this area instead, which Shunan had skeptically accepted. A deer meat was roasted and cooked on a fire. Rakrak and Shunan were happily sitting in front of it as Shunan took a chunk of meat to taste their food. Rakrak aims to find out the reason why the lizardman was with the frogmen and his true purpose of coming into this place. However, he knows that he needs to be cautious not to make any suspicious action, to not let them know that he was curious about the lizardman, to avoid any trouble. Rakrak asked about what the huge feathers on Shunan's neck meant. Shunan proudly answered that it was the feathers of cockatrice. Rakrak wondered what cockatrice was. Shunan informed Rakrak that it was a type of dangerous animal who lives around the forest and can be seen walking with both of their feet. He added that these creatures are difficult to catch since they have poisonous properties, immense speed and wide range of movement, which will be difficult to face in combat. Shunan implies that it was the reason why they have decided to keep watch within this area, and Rakrak asked the weapon they have used, a javelin, to catch it. Shunan appears to be disappointed that Rakrak had assumed that they had used javelin. Rakrak was confused about his behavior. Shunan called his fellow frogman to bring him his bow and arrow. He called their lizardman named Owen if he would like to fetch him the bow and arrow. Rakrak heard that the lizard was named Owen. Shunan further asked for another favor to Owen, as it currently gives him the bow and arrow. He pointed at a tree and requested Owen to put an archery board in the tree to showcase his skills. Rakrak was observing quietly as Owen put the archery board on the tree. An arrow flies in the distance. It managed to directly hit the wood on the center. Rakrak commended Shunan's accuracy in using bow and arrow. Shunan explains that they are taught to shoot arrows since they were kids, although he is not trying to brag, but he was one of the best archers in their tribe, which made Rakrak amazed by him and asked if he can also use the bow. Shunan politely handed him the bow and Rakrak expressed his gratitude. It was Rakrak's first time using this kind of weapon. He noticed that the wood and the string itself is not at its best quality. Rakrak knew that the power was also weak compared to javelin, but its advantage was its great precision and speed. He had shot an arrow, but it did not reach the target, as Rakrak was thinking of adapting this kind of weapon for their tribe. Rakrak threw another arrow on the archer board. However, all of them do not seem to reach the target. Shunan expressed that it was indeed not easy at the beginning, then ordered Owen to pick all the arrows on the ground. He was getting annoyed by Owen. Rakrak complained that he must be the one who would pick the arrows up since he was the one who shot it, but Shunin just assures him to just think of it as a way of helping him out. Deep in his mind, he wanted to learn something more than the arrows. He approaches Owen as it picks up all of the arrows. Rakrak asked Owen if it was really his name, and Owen just confirmed it. He further asked how Lizardmen got mixed up with the group of frogmen. Owen answered nervously that they had lived together with other races within just the same village as Lizardmen and frogmen. Rakrak asked about the reason. Owen believes that the two races would be a great help to each other. Rakrak further asked what does he mean that they could help each other. Owen just smiles at him and tells him that they should let them continue to coexist in harmony. Rakrak asked Owen how they would help each other. Owen asked that in exchange for receiving protection from the frogmen, they should help them in inconvenient situations. Shunin added that the frogmen do not have the capability to leave water for a long time, but lizardmen have the ability to climb trees and get fruits, which made them both help each other with good exchange. Rakrak disagrees with Owen because lizardmen are also capable of protecting themselves, but Owen just explained that the forest was very dangerous for them, and the frogmen was one of the biggest tribes in the forest. Owen told Rakrak that they would not have survived this far without them. Rakrak did not expect Owen's response at all. He changed the topic and suddenly asked Owen if they would be good at archery. A freshly cooked meat of the deer can be seen placed on the leaves. Shunin immediately took a part of it and tasted it. He expressed that he was used to the taste of deer meat, but he did not expect that adding fragrant herbs would make it even more delicious, and Rakrak was glad that it greatly suits his taste buds. Yer asked Shunin if they had ever tasted the meat of a water buffalo, and Rakrak gladly added that he had caught one a while ago, and it was very delicious. Rakrak further adds that they have caught a live water buffalo, which intrigued Shunin. He offers a trade for Shunin for giving him a live water buffalo in exchange for the pouch of arrows, which Shunin did not hesitate to accept. However, the frogman guards seemed to not like his decision, which made Shunin to immediately change his decision that he won't be able to accept the offer. Rakrak was disappointed about his sudden decision. Shunin reiterates the topic about their current discussion about their current relations. He had shown Rakrak that his fellow frogman does not bear any hatred and hostility towards the lizardmen. Shunin told Rakrak that they are naturally friendly to the lizardmen, especially to Owen, who had come to this place to assist them since they have lived together in the same village. He called Owen's attention. He asked Owen to further explain to Rakrak how they managed to help each other in the past. Owen gladly obeyed him and even said that he will do his best to promote their harmonious relationship. Rakrak was cautious enough to realize that this thing had been prepared beforehand and it was planned by them all along. He was right to get close to him and ask him closely, because if he didn't do that he would have fallen for their words. Shunin bids goodbye to the Lizardmen tribe. Rakrak told Shunin that they will be the one who will visit next time, to which Shunin just answered that it was not that necessary because the place is wide enough to have a good look within the area. Shunin waved his hand and said goodbye to the Lizardmen. The Lizardmen also did the same thing for them. Shunin deliberately pats Owen on his back, which makes him push forward lightly. Owen's worried eyes looked back towards Rakrak. This small action had been noticed by Jael and Rakrak. For them, their relationship does not look like they are living harmoniously. In the small island patch in the middle of the pond, there was a shelter that was guarded by the frogmen. Shunin forcefully slapped Owen's face. He pointed his finger towards Owen while telling him that he knew what he was doing after all this time. Shunin was angry and asked what Owen had told Rakrak. He knelt in front of him, explaining that he didn't tell Rakrak anything, and the only conversation they had was Rakrak trying to learn how to be a good archer. Shunin's bodyguard kicked Owen on his stomach because he did not seem to believe his lies, because he knows Owen cannot even use the bow and arrow. Owen further tried to explain that it was indeed true that he does not know how to use an arrow, but he only answered yes because it would make Rakrak less suspicious. Shunin thinks and finally understands what Owen was trying to express to him. Owen further added that it was also the reason why he had acted that he couldn't tell him how to use the arrow, because he also implies that he needed to pay a fee if he really wanted to learn. Shunin asked what Rakrak had said, and Owen answered that Rakrak said he couldn't give him anything right away, and gave up asking for more. Shunin looked at his bodyguard, implying that Owen's reason does make sense. He then commended Owen for doing his best as sharp trickster. Shunin proceeded to tell Owen something. He asked if Owen clearly remembers anything on the island before. Owen looked back in direction. He looks at the small island where some of the frogmen are guarding a shelter. Shunin told Owen that he was quite lucky. He threatens Owen that he was about to offer the young lizards as a sacrifice if he tried to do something suspicious. Shunin added that there are even new sacrifices on the island. He told Owen if he was making sense, to which Owen just agreed. Owen said that he was indeed very lucky. He declared that he will do his best to deceive Rakrak's tribe from now on. However, in the back of his mind he regrets going on a journey and worked hard to get to this place because he did not expect that they would be treated badly by a frogman. He was sad that he didn't realize that they were being deceived the moment Shunin had welcomed them despite belonging to a different race. Owen even experienced having a brotherhood ceremony implying that they will live together and forever on the island. He knows that the remaining 200 lizardmen cannot resist the current number of 1,500 frogmen. A huge monster that looked like a dragon was fiercely looking towards a certain prey. It was a flashback when Owen and his tribe got intimidated by this ferocious monster. This monster was the frogman's god. The lizard was scared of their life the moment they had witnessed the god of frogmen. Bloods have shed as all of their tribesmen suffered the monster's wrath. Owen knew that this creature was the one who was controlling the frogmen. It is similar to how the frogmen controlled them. Although Owen feels that Rakrak was indeed a strong warrior, it will not do anything since the frogmen has a god helping them. The frogmen tribes are similar to a group of savages who do not even know what a bow and arrow was. As long as they will get many sacrifices, they will be able to live for a longer time. Owen's son was among the young lizards who had been held captive by the lizards. He aims to make Rakrak's tribe come to God as a sacrifice. A water buffalo can be seen standing beside the skulled warrior. Shunin was amazed upon witnessing that there was a live water buffalo. Rakrak smiles as he tells Shunin that they will indeed give him a live one and this should be enough as an exchange for a bow. Owen joins the conversation and proposes that they will need to get to know more about each other. He added that they also do not know anything about Rakrak's tribe for now, and with that being said he invited them to visit their village. Owen told them that they will be able to give them a bow afterwards because he believes that it will be a great opportunity if they will get to know each other first. An arrow flies through a direction. It came from Rakrak, who seems to have difficulty grasping his skill in archery. Rakrak asked about his progress, and Jael just told him that his arrow did even reach half the distance that most of the arrows can reach, and it also lacked accuracy. He assumes that there was a limit for just imitated objects, but Jael said that they have perfectly replicated it, but one thing she doesn't know is the kind of tendon they have used during the demonstration. Jael noticed that there is a fifth meeting that will be held soon, and it just seems that the frogmen had badly wanted to know more about them. Rakrak felt that the frogmen had actually been hiding something from them while just covering it in the name of faith, and he was probably doing dirty tricks. However, their only concern was that they did not know how their tribe operates, and they will need to still remain on high alert. Rakrak aims to achieve something this time and asked Jael if she had already picked up all the herbs that are known to have good benefits, to which Jael just answered that there were indeed plenty of them. He was glad to hear Jael's response, but on the other hand he also hoped that Owen would serve as their key to their main goal. Rakrak looked at Jael as she was going to suggest something. Jael believes that they should give Owen a chance to prove himself. Rakrak looked back at her and carefully thought about his decision. On a small island in the Frogman's sanctuary, frogman guards were still on their post to look after the young lizards. Owen was being choked by one of the frogmen as his plan fails to work out this time. The guard appears to be named as Aboy, and Shunin told him to stop what he was doing because Owen might really die for that, to which Aboy replied that Owen would not die from just something like that. Owen cries as he tells Aboy that Rakrak's tribe seems to be more wary than he expected. Aboy asked Owen if Rakrak's tribe was different from their tribe, who just accepted their offer without even knowing anything first. He finally let go of Owen and threw him into the ground. Aboy told Shunin that he will now leave them alone for now. Shunin threatens Owen that he must hurry because his patience has started to run out. He told Owen that his father had told them to bring forward the living sacrifice ceremony, which made Owen left surprised. Shunin told Owen that he must hurry for now to get as much information from Rakrak's tribe as possible, and made them accept their invite without any hesitation. He informed Owen that his father's sickness and elders had begun worsening. Owen asked if that does mean that they had an itchy disease that was the cause of the spread of the illness. He wonders if this was some sort of dangerous disease. Shunin answered that the Lizardmen were not supposed to know. He admitted that it was indeed a dangerous disease. According to Shunin's description, this disease does not only make their skin itch, but the sticky white mucus also starts covering their skin. Whenever they have tried to wipe it away, it would never disappear because the area of the skin affected continues to expand over time until the moment comes that the mucus had already covered the entire body. It will be difficult to breathe. Shunin that some of the elders had suffered so much before dying, especially their priest who had died yesterday. It was Owen's first time hearing that there was such a deadly disease, which also made him wonder why Shunin decided to tell him that. He assumes that Shunin must be testing his loyalty, and he should never be happy or surprised about it. Owen said that the information about this should not be passed on and spread to Lizardmen. He believes that there will be someone who would look down on his fellow frogmen, but Shunan was aware that it was just a natural thing and it cannot be helped if it will be known throughout the continent in the future. Owen suggests that even if the information began to spread, there are several ways to calm the Lizardmen by telling them that the disease can also be spread to Lizardmen. Shunan thought that it was a good idea, but he was not sure if it would actually be spread to Lizardmen. Owen informed Shunan that there was a type of plant that produces foam when crushed, and some have also the property to cause itchiness. He told Shunan that he was the one who had made the most contact with the Lizardmen, and he just had to act like he got the disease from the frogmen, which made Shunan commends his determination to serve him. Shunan taps Owen's shoulder, acknowledging his great idea to succeed with their plan. He offers some condition to Owen that if he would be able to get the Lizardmen to go into their base, he will exclude all the young Lizardmen from being sacrificed to their god. Owen happily thanked Shunan for his proposal. Shunan encouraged him to better keep their plan going because they badly need some sacrifices recently, and Owen called Shunan's attention once again. Owen was about to tell him about his personal request. He suggests that they will possibly need to bring some of their bows. Shunan just stared at him, thinking about considering his favor. Both of the tribes can be seen having some negotiations and conversation in the middle of the forest. Yer was surprised about the hardest material he had received, even though it was sturdy. A pile and stalk of herbs that was effective against itching can be seen on the ground. Rakrak aims to offer all of the medicinal herbs they have gathered in exchange for a bow. Shunan was carefully considering his decision. He believes that trading weapons requires a certain level of faith. Rakrak was also thinking the same thing about utilizing the level of their faith. He looked at the frogman's direction as he was still thinking about his decision. Rakrak started to make his negotiation and told Shunan about his personal request to make. He told Shunan that he wanted a private conversation with Owen. Shunan looks at Rakrak and smiles at him. Owen also smiles and tells Shunan that he is pleased to do whatever he desires. Rakrak and Owen can be seen walking on some part of the forest. Owen informed Rakrak that their tribe leader had gray-brown leather lizardmen when they previously performed a brotherhood ritual. He suddenly changed the topic and told Rakrak that they must know each other well for now. Owen asked Rakrak to tell him all about their tribe, as he will do the same after he was satisfied by the information. He told Rakrak to just let go of his doubts and not be afraid to take a closer look when suddenly a butterfly from Nebula was noticed by Rakrak. It appears to be wanting to express something. The butterfly landed onto Owen's head. Owen wonders about the unfamiliar type of butterfly that went close to him. He calmly smiles upon witnessing it. Rakrak told Owen that they must need to put an end to all the doubts and suspicions between them. He showed the butterfly once again and was about to tell everything about his lizardman's journey. In the frogman base, Shunan's voice can be heard screaming in joy after knowing that Owen had succeeded to their plan. Shunan asked Owen if Rakrak's tribe had already decided to come to their tribe for themselves, to which Owen had gladly confirmed it. Aboy remembered the moment Rakrak had invited them to their village because he also thought that it was a trap, but it turns out that they are just a harmless tribe. He added that due to this they have learned a lot about their population, size, and location of the village, and even their medical history has been leaked. Aboy also noticed that the scout had lied about their true numbers, that they were about 600 lizardmen, but it turned out that they were just roughly 300 members and 30 skulled warriors in total, which Shunan had agreed. Shunan didn't expect that the Rakrak's tribe would trust them this time, and he had given all the credit to Owen for that. He asked Owen what he desired to get, but Owen just said that it was enough for him to just keep his promise for the young lizardmen. Shunan seems to have forgotten about what he had promised, and Owen reiterates that he told him to exclude the young lizardmen from the sacrifices and allow them to live together. Aboy asked Shunan if he really promised anything, and Shunan replied that his father would also understand why he had promised Owen something because they don't need to be too harsh towards him. Shunan assures Owen to not worry because he clearly remembers his promise. Owen can be seen quietly observing the island from afar because it was his only concern why he kept doing this. He was glad that he would now be able to live with his child if he succeeded in his mission. However, there was still something bugging his mind. Owen blames Rakrak for his problem because as a tribe leader he should have been more cautious and suspicious. He began to write something on the sand. It was a series of symbols that seemed to want to tell him something. A while ago, Rakrak began to introduce Owen the use of symbols, to which they are calling it letters. Rakrak taught Owen the basic meaning of each of the symbols in the alphabet. He wrote an X symbol that means no. Next is the seemingly square root sign, which means it is just a lie. Owen asked Rakrak if it was okay to write two letters close together. Owen further explained his understanding that if they would put the two symbols together it would mean not real or not lie. Rakrak acknowledges Owen's quick understanding about the use of the symbols. Owen suddenly remembered Shunan's remarks to him for being a great trickster. He had realized that Rakrak does not tell everyone about the symbols and wondered why would Rakrak tell him this thing and not to the frogmen. Rakrak suddenly answered that it was because of faith. He implied that they have already shared a fair share of faith between the Frogman tribe. However, Rakrak was more interested in their personal connection rather than Frogmen. Upon hearing it, Owen attempts to resist what Rakrak had said. Rakrak interrupted him and confessed that he does not believe any of the information that Owen had told him before because it just feels like his own story. He further informed Owen that his tribe had already known the concept of pain and those who have greatly suffered and are forced to do the thing they do not want to achieve something good. Rakrak sincerely told Owen that they are just like them who know the face of someone who is suffering inside. Owen was surprised upon hearing it. Rakrak asked if he had said something wrong, and Owen just asked Rakrak if he would like anything else to say to him. He just plainly smiled and told them that he had already seen many signs of faith. Back in the future, Owen observed that Rakrak seems to be very confident about it, but he was sure that he won't be able to defeat the number of frogmen, especially their god. He also remembered that Rakrak had previously bragged about having to catch a monster. But for him, he had seen real monsters beyond their comprehension, and they do not even know how to use a bow, which goes to their disadvantage. Owen believes that telling him how to understand symbols must be a foolish decision. He does not want Rakrak to trust someone like him. Owen still wonders why Rakrak had decided to put his trust in him. As he looks back to the symbols, he was still not happy about himself because he was just a fraud being. He carefully analyzed the symbols that Rakrak had written for him. Suddenly, the frogmen had noticed that Rakrak's tribe had arrived at their base. The foot of Lizardmen had already stepped on the frogmen's sanctuary. It was Rakrak along with his warriors and members who had decided to visit the frogmen's base. Shunan warmly welcomed Rakrak as his friend, to which Rakrak had expressed his gratitude for his hospitality. Rakrak told Shunan that he hopes that their exchange will even strengthen their friendship along with their tribes. He assures Shunan that they had just brought their weapons because they are just worried that a cicatrice is on the way. However, Shunan did not think that Rakrak could ever fight one of the cicatrices, and when their feasts begin he will make them very drunk and shoot them with poison arrows. Rakrak had looked in all directions, implying that he wanted to see Owen. They had finally found Owen that seemed to be writing something on the ground, and Owen must have also decided where the lizard should sit. Shunan requested Rakrak to take a seat to say hello to Owen because Shunan wanted to check if their food had already been prepared. Owen was quietly doing what was assigned to him. He immediately saw Rakrak had arrived at their base, and he told them that he had written some text to where they were sitting. It was Owen and Frogman's plan to begin the banquet the moment they had all sat down. Owen told them that it will be a fun banquet that will promote peace and friendship between their tribes. A symbol can be seen written by Owen. Rakrak called the attention of Ur that was behind him. He puts his buffalo skull on his head and signals the warriors to begin what they had planned. Ur immediately understood his assignment and positioned himself, aiming to throw his spear. He managed to hit one of the frogmen directly onto its head, which had surprised the frogmen around it. It directly pierced onto the frog's chin, going through its head, which would be very fatal. Rakrak ordered everyone to slay all the frogmen on their sight. A spear was pierced onto a frogman's chest. One of the frogmen asked Owen if he had known about this all along while they were being slaughtered by Rakrak's warriors. Rakrak displays a serious expression as some of the blood splattered on its face. A frog can be seen lying lifeless on the ground. Rakrak was walking along with Owen and observed the area if some of the frogmen was still alive, and Ur had also confirmed that they had already killed most of the frogs, but some of them managed to get away, which means that the arrows would soon fly in their direction. Ur further implied that they do not need to worry about their arrows because they still have some backup plan. Rakrak called Owen's attention. He told him that there will be something he must do. One of the frogmen prepares their bow and arrow. Shunan can be seen surrounded with an army of frogmen, seemingly angry about the situation. He believed that Owen was behind all of this. Shunan asked one of the frogmen if they had clearly conveyed his order. The frogman replied that he had summoned all the warriors in the village and made them fight Rakrak's tribe just as Shunan wanted. He added that he had told the frogmen to hold the lizardmen in the village until the warriors arrived. Shunan was surprised upon hearing that there are warriors in Rakrak's tribe. He immediately placed a command to his army to reduce all enemy numbers right before their reinforcements arrived and signaled everyone to fire their arrows in unison. The frogman arrows are a type of special arrow that was specifically dipped in the poison of a poisonous frog. It will be fatal against the lizardmen even if they will just get grazed by it, and the arrows fly through the Rakrak tribe's direction. Ur leads the warriors and told them to prepare themselves for a defense as they hold a thick breastplate to block all the arrows. The arrows that had managed to reach their shield were ricocheted into another direction due to their shield's smooth surface. Shunan was shocked upon witnessing it. He did not expect that the lizardmen would deflect all of their arrows. Rakrak held one of their shields and was amazed by its property to block a javelin attack which would be more effective against arrows. Shunin didn't give up but instead ordered everyone to just keep shooting their arrows and stop them from engaging forward. Suddenly, Shunin noticed something odd in the skies. Their surroundings were eventually covered with thick black smoke. Due to this, Shunin cannot see their enemies clearly, and he has also realized that their accuracy of bow attack will drastically decrease. He wonders where this smoke came from, and it can be seen that a huge fire was burning through the woods. The Lizardmen in Shunin's village were shocked upon seeing that Owen was burning down their village. Owen responded that it was just Shunin's order. One of the Lizardmen cannot seem to believe in Owen because he knows that Shunin would not order something like this. Owen confessed that it was the favor of the Lizardmen tribe. They told Owen if he was sure about his decision as they are afraid that bad things would happen for them. Owen just simply told them that they should put their trust in him because Rakrak's tribe would crush Shunin's tribe. They asked how exactly they were going to destroy the Frogman tribe, and they even questioned Owen if he was telling the truth because he was known for being a trickster. Owen replied that it was the exact reason to just believe in him more. He added that he is indeed the trickster Owen, but he had still risked everything for this. Upon hearing it, they were speechless. They began to get a torch to help Owen with his plan. Shunin looked shocked about what he was witnessing. He realized that Owen had burned their village down. Shunin told everyone that they should just retreat for now because the Lizardmen in their village had obviously betrayed them. He added that their numbers were also decreasing, and they must quickly go back before they will eventually be defeated by Rakrak's tribe, to which the Frogman guard reasoned out that the Lizardmen had killed all of their warriors, so they must not back down. Shunin became angrier this time. He knew that if he would die in this fight, the whole tribe would be in danger and eventually suffer loss. The Frogmen were all frustrated that they had no choice but to follow Shunin's order. One of the Frogmen asked Shunin if they would join Aboy in the fight, which made Shunin speechless. Shunin was skeptical about Aboy's abilities. He wonders what must be the way to effectively fight those Lizardmen. Aboy saw that their village was currently on fire, and it caused the thick black smoke that blocked their vision. He asked the other Frogman guard if Shunin was currently fighting in the low-class village. He assumes that all of the warriors that were deployed in the banquet hall and the other reinforcements were all dead. Aboy estimates that the current number of the warriors that were with Shunin is in total of 15 warriors and another 5 on the small island. He then knows that the warriors who were with him were 10, and if they would sum up all of their numbers, it would be in the total number of 45, which made him believe that they still have the advantage. A Frogman guard can be seen holding an arrow and a poisonous frog on his right pocket. Aboy had ordered his warriors to put a plenty of poison from the poisonous frogs to their arrows and go for an all-out attack when Shunin's army arrived with them. It was a noisy day in the middle of the forest. The Frogmen had prepared their bow and poisoned arrows to shoot towards the Lizardmen. One of them suddenly felt an immense tension that made his survival instincts kick in. It was compared to their feeling when they encountered a cockatrice, which his body was telling him that they are in great danger. A huge pair of bright eyes that seemingly came from a celestial monster appears beneath the tall trees. The Frogmen then shoot their arrows in response. However, they were surprised upon witnessing something. It was Drake who stood up from the tall bushes and seemingly unaffected by the arrows that were launched towards him. Jael smiles as he observes that Drake had grown bigger on this land, but the other lizard warrior had clarified if Drake got hit by an arrow. Jael replied that Drake had eaten all the arrows that came near his mouth. The lizard warrior had felt that Drake got angrier this time. Jael told Drake that he should look in front of them as there was an open buffet of frogmen for him. The frogmen frantically told Aboy that their arrows were ineffective against it. Aboy pauses for a while and carefully thinks where they should hit the monster to make sure it will be poisoned. However, Drake had already charged forward with his claws in front to attack the frogmen on his side. It made the Aboy and his warriors get out of Drake's way. One of the frogmen warriors had been devoured by Drake, which made Aboy left in shock. Aboy knew that this monster could not even be compared to Cockatrice, as it was quicker and stronger to the point that it would be impossible for them to hit it on the eye. He then decided to throw a poisonous frog directly onto its mouth, making sure that Drake will be poisoned. Without any second thought, Drake immediately catches the poisonous frog with his mouth. Aboy ordered his warriors to throw all of their poisonous frog towards its mouth because he believes that Drake has no protection against poison. Drake had instinctively moved its head, catching all of the poisonous frog that was thrown on him. Jael asked the other lizardmen about what must the frog warriors are trying to accomplish, to which the lizardmen replied that they had put out all of their poisonous frogs and threw them on Drake's mouth at once. Jael thinks that it was a strange decision to throw away all of their poisonous frogs. She smiles as she was confident that Drake would not easily suffer from poisons. It was because of the beetle god blessings, where its third blessing was toxin resistance. Aboy was shocked that his plan hadn't worked out at all. He knew that it was too late for him now as Drake pointed his attention to him. Drake moved his body and devoured Aboy's head. Patch of blood can be seen splattered on the floor. Shunnin's village was still burning down. A frogman was hiding behind the bushes as it charged his bow aiming on a certain target. The arrow flies in the air. It was directed onto Rakrak's head. Rakrak had immediately felt the attack and slapped the arrow with his tail right before it reached him. Yer had sneaked on the frogman and slapped its head. He told Rakrak that it was the last frogman in the village because Shunnin had already abandoned their allies and ran away. Due to that, the Lizardmen had the opportunity to clean up and kill all the remaining frogmen in the village. Rakrak replied that they have no right to judge them. He also noticed something strange about their fight. Rakrak had observed that even the frogmen were suffering at great disadvantage. Their true tribe leader Alroy does not seem to appear. Nebula smiles upon carefully watching the situation. He replied that it was his plan to make Alroy not to appear in the fight. The deadly disease that was spreading in the frogmen is called mycelium, which is commonly contagious to amphibians, which is proven fatal when the mucous membranes took over the body. Nebula thinks that the most important thing for applying this disease is that it only works against the amphibians. That makes it a little difficult to find. It was around the time when Rakrak had decided to leave their sanctuary. Nebula had already discovered the disease 100 kilometers away from them. After he had discovered it, he was able to transport the disease. Nebula took advantage of the wasps that had moved the flesh of the affected frogs. One wasp had been able to reach the frogman's village. It managed to drop the part of the disease directly on Alroy, which was the strongest tribal leader of the frogmen. The water in the lake can be seen vibrating from the sound waves. The frogmen can be seen playing drums. Some of the young lizards were seen lying on the grassfield and seemed to be afraid for their life. Even offering these young lizards had not helped to cure his illness at all. Alroy was calling the attention of the two-headed god. He aims to sacrifice the young lizards to their two-headed god. Alroy was calling to their god to kill the Lizardmen. Shunnin had appeared during the ritual, and he observed that his father had begun the living sacrifice ritual. Nebula was confident that it would be their victory. Someone was frantically calling Rakrak's attention. It was Owen, who seemed exhausted trying to catch up on them. Rakrak had commended him that he did a great job, but he wonders what made him come this far. Owen asked Rakrak that they will need to get to the island in the lake right now. Rakrak had asked if there was something important on the island, and Owen replied that there were young lizardmen who were currently being offered as a sacrifice. Owen added that they were being sacrificed to the god of the frogmen. He believes that Rakrak would be powerful enough to save the young lizards and fight their god. Rakrak replied that Owen should have said it a long time ago because the boat had already moved and there was no way to go to the island. Owen tried to suggest that they could swim, but Rakrak told him that it was too dangerous for them because they might get attacked by the frogmen while they are moving through the waters. Owen cries as he was afraid that something bad would happen. He further told Rakrak that his son was included in the young lizards and they are currently being held as a sacrifice. Upon hearing it, Rakrak became annoyed. He suddenly smacked Owen's face. Rakrak angrily shouted at him and told Owen that he was stupid that he didn't have said it sooner and he should have put his faith in him a long time ago. He continuously scolds Owen that he does not believe in the gods of these evil frogs because they have enough strength to defeat it. And if the god will appear before them, he will show him how to crush their god. Rakrak's fists were shaking as he began to gradually calm down. He told Owen once again that if he really wanted to save his child, he should have told it sooner. Jael had arrived at the scene and saw that Owen was crying in front of Rakrak. Rakrak looked away from them and said that it could have changed everything. He believes that he can overturn the situation if he knew what Shunnin's plan a little sooner. Something huge was appearing beneath the waters. Alroy seems to be happy as he felt that their god had responded to his wishes. A huge two-headed god had emerged from the lake. Alroy told the two-headed god that he had some live offerings in front of him. He told the two-headed god that the Lizardmen had dared to disturb God's lake, and for this they must be punished. The two-headed god fiercely growls in response. Owen was observing from a distance as he realized that it was too late to save his son. Rakrak was behind Owen, who also saw the two-headed god that emerged from the waters. He believes that it might be worth a try, but they currently have the topographical disadvantage. Rakrak feels that they cannot use any tricks, and they may have some sacrifices. Suddenly, he noticed something. It was the blue butterfly that flew near them. Rakrak called Owen's attention. Owen looked up to Rakrak. A huge praying mantis can be seen standing and covering the entire forest. Then Rakrak looked at Owen, asking if he believes in miracles. Thank you for watching. If you like this story, please comment next part. I hope you like our today's story. See you next time. Goodbye.